ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Unless you have come face to face with climate change effects, it is but a mere buzz in your ear.
Previously, the weather was very consistent. We would actually predict when it's going to rain, when it's going to be a dry season, but now we can't.
Deforestation, dry reservoirs, failing crops, and high population that barely cares for the environment is the scenario that is leading to the disappearance of Kiribati Nation, a story among others that we don't seem to learn from.
Climate change issue, to me, it's a natural thing, but it is accelerated by human activities. And human activities such as industrialization and burning fossil fuels and lifestyle of human beings, this causes climate change at a greater level, because we see when industrial revolution started, that was early 17th century Apple. We see the changes in carbon footprint from fluctuating from 280 parts per million to 400 parts per million.
The ice caps start to melt, therefore causing floods in some areas or parts of the world. That warming also causes evaporation to take place from our rivers, from our lakes, and that when that happens, of course, now the rivers start to dry up. When the Earth's atmosphere is very hot, it now starts to cause, the plants cannot grow normally, which causes drought. So unless one understands how the process of global warming takes place, that's now how you get to understand how climate now starts to change.
Considering that climate change effects are like lighting a cigar at a gas station, what are these greenhouse gases that we should fight to reduce?
Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, we have methane, nitrogen trifluoride, chlorofluoromethane, we have methane itself, and if we look at carbon mostly is produced, the largest part of carbon is produced industrially. Although we have natural means of production of carbon, such as volcano eruptions and the same the same carbon dioxide that we produce, we as human beings and living things. Although what we produce is very little, it can be absorbed by plants. We have water vapor also as a greenhouse gas, but for the water vapor, it's good because it precipitates when it reaches the maximum in the atmosphere, so it precipitates.
Climate change will definitely disrupt nations' economy due to changes in the weather seasons.
Climate change affects because like in the industry or agricultural industry, they rely on the weather to make their yields and to have profits for themselves. So if there's climate change, that will affect how their patterns of income. So like farmers won't be able to get as much as they used to because of the unpredictable weather, and also there'll be a lot of wastage because of, if let's say for example, if a farmer has planned to harvest and there is no harvest to be harvested because of the climate change, that will be a whole waste because they have already invested in that, and like in things like manure and all those things, and now since there's climate change, it won't produce any yield. So that's a big it's a big effect. Yeah.
Drought and hurricanes will be experienced in many places, which will lead to poverty and homelessness.
If we look at now things like heat waves and other climatic issues that are caused by climate change, if we do not do something about it, about climate change, then they will intensify. Because as the changes occurs of a place, now the intensity of things and the magnitude increases. So to me, they'll continue to happen unpredictably actually. Now, climate change has caused sea rise, and according to the UN and NASA, it says that since 19th century, and we have 8 centimeter rise in sea levels. Yeah, so we should do something about it. And climate change and global warming causes various things, like now extinction of species. Like if you look at sea species, due to acidification of seas, because we have seas absorb a greater amount of, like now 13 billion parts of carbon dioxide is absorbed by seas, and this will generally cause the sea acidification, and we know very well there are those species that cannot survive in acidic acid. So what they'll do, they'll just get extinct.
With a noticeable effect so far, world governments have come up with solutions to mitigate the effects.
So I think in the docket of the UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program, they are really trying to help Kenya enforce laws of environmental conservation, and also encouraging people to take the initiative of planting trees, not dirtifying the rivers, and many other measures that that would be appropriate in environmental conservation.
Climate change issues are being addressed by a convention that came up with the Kyoto Protocol. Recently, we see climate change as a current trending issue, and we had actually held a climate strike between September 22nd and 27th, and that was inspired by a teenage girl, a Swedish girl by the name Greta Thunberg, and it was held globally.
You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
What is our individual responsibility to improve the changes?
I will take the approach of the UN and other ambassadors of environmental conservation about how to reduce emission of the greenhouse gases at individual level, and I will talk about the 3 R's in environmental conservation: reduce, reuse, and recycle. I think that is what each of us needs to do. If we are to think about the carbon footprint, then ultimately that is what we need to advocate for.
We have various measures to mitigate climate change. If the population of the world shifts from using fossil fuel and they start using like renewable energy. Now we have renewable energies from solar, we have wind, we have geothermal. If we shift from fossil fuel, which is the main source of carbon dioxide, it's one way of mitigating climate change. We also have to do green cities. Green cities is whereby in a city you can have a house, yes, but in the rooftop you have some plants over there that are green, and ensure that the entire city have something green. Now, through that we can absorb, we can try to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that is in the air. We also have to stop reclaiming, or we have to stop draining our wetlands, because wetlands are the main carbon sink. We have now to stop things like deforestation. Deforestation, because forests are carbon sequestrators. We also have, so we can do through things to do with forests. We can do reforestation of the areas that are degraded. We can plant new forest. We can do new forests to ensure that carbon is having somewhere to go.
Is there hope that things will be different in the coming future?
There is hope. There is hope because if this message is sent across to all the individuals, and people take a personal decision to conserve the environment. Each one of us has to take a personal decision to conserve the environment. I think it is possible. Even with what we have seen with the Mau eviction of people from the forests, I think something is being done in Kenya, and there is hope. But a lot needs to be done also, because not everyone is aware about these greenhouse gases and the effects on the environment.
Venus, it has a lot of carbon, like 154,000 times the Earth, and this causes the greenhouse effect. And the heat of Venus, this causes the greenhouse effect. Causes the heat of Venus to be so high to an extent that it can melt lead. So we have to ensure that our Earth doesn't reach that point, because when it reaches that point, no one of us will exist.